Now in this video we are going to talk about how to create an array using Java. Now before creating the array in the practice, let's see which steps we need to create an array in Java. So there are 3 steps that we need to create an array in Java. So the first step is declaration, then instantiation, then initialization. Now to understand these 3 steps, let's see what's happening in the memory when we are doing these steps over here. Now let's say our memory looks like this. Now we'll learn that what's happening in the memory when we are doing these steps over here. So the first step is we are declaring an array. So when we declare an array, the system never allocates memory for the array. All it does is it creates a reference variable like this. So if we declare an array with the name of ARR, it's going to create a reference in the memory like this. It will never allocate any space in the memory. So here, the name of reference is the name of the array that we give to our name. So in the first step, in the declaration step, the system only will create the reference variable over here. Then we continue to the next step. So in the next step, we are instantiating an array. So when we instantiate an array, the compiler allocates memory for this array. Let's say we have created an array with a size of 5 elements. So the system allocates 5 contiguous cells for this array in the memory. So as you can see over here, there is no space between these cells over here. The system allocates 5 contiguous cells. So contiguous means that they are located next to each other. There is no space between them. Now you might be interested, what will be the values of these cells over here? Now in case if you declare an array of integer, the values by default will be zeros. Now in this step, one more thing that compiler will do is, it stores the address of the first cell in the reference variable that we declared over here. Now let's say the physical address of this first cell is xx1. Now in this case, xx1 will be stored in this reference variable over here. Now when we store it there, it automatically creates a link between this reference variable and this first cell over here. Now let's say in the future, if we want to access this cell over here, we are using reference variables. So to access this one, we are using the value in the reference variable plus 0. So in this case, it's going to be like this. Now if you want to access the second element, in this case you see that this is 0th index and this is the first index. So we are using again first cell's physical address plus 1. Then for the third cell we are using first cell's address plus 2. Now here you might understand why we start from 0 index, because the reference variable reference to the first cell. So by using 0 index over here, we are not changing this value over here, so we are just adding it. So we are accessing the first cell over here. Now it only needs to increase counter when we reach the second cell. So in the second cell, we know that the index of second cell is 1. So to reach that one, we need to add 1 over here. So that's the reason we are starting from the 0. Now after instantiating of an array, we continue to the last step, which is initialization of array. So in this step, we give default values to the cells that we have over here. Now let's say in our case, if we want to give 10 all these cells, after initialization, this cell's value will be 10. Now with these 3 steps, we can easily create an array in Java. Now the syntax of creating an array in Java is like this. So for the first stage, when we are declaring an array, we are using data type, which can be integer, string, or any other data type in Java. Then after declaring this, we are using the reference variable and setting with the new keyword, we are putting again data type with the square brackets. Then in the third step, we are initializing the values like this. We are using the index and setting values to these cells over here. Now based on this logic, let's switch to Java to see how can we create an array over there. Now in this case, I'm going to create an array of integer. Now, as we said, in the first step, we are declaring our array. So what I'm going to do, I will write data type with square bracket. Then I will put the reference name. So in this case, I will put int array. So basically, you can choose whatever name you like. So in this case, I just want to identify that this is integer array. That's why I put integer array. Now in the second case, we need to instantiate our array. Now in this case, we need to set the size of array. So what I'm going to do, I will take this reference variable over here and put it like this. And then by using new keyword and the data type of this array, I will set, for example, I want to create an array of size of 3. So with this line of code, we are instantiating our array. So this means that 3 contiguous cells are allocated in the memory with the value of 0. Now in the third case, we need to initialize our array. Now in this case, for example, I will give values of the array from 1 to 3. So to do so, I will just take the name of array and the index will start from 0. And I will set for the first one 1. And for the second one, I'll just copy everything from here and paste it to make it quicker. So index start from 0, then 1, then 2. Now in this case, I will set this 2 and 3. Now with this, we have created our array. Now you might be interested, how can we know that if it is created or not? Now we can print out our array to the console. Now here, it's good time to mention that you cannot just straight away print the array to the console. So to do so, we need to use arrays library to print out the array to the console, because in this case, if I put system out print with the name of array, you will see that it's not printing the proper values. So it's going to print some strange characters over here, which is not readable. Now to print out the array to the console, we will use arrays library. So here I'm going to import arrays library. So it's coming from Java till.arrays. So by using this, we can print out array to the console. Now here I will just call it arrays.toString. So here as a parameter, I will put our array over here. Now if I run our code one more time, you will see that our array printed out over here. Now it's a good time to show you that, for example, if we have not initialized our values over here, and without initializing, if we run our code, we will see that this is printing out only zeros, because when we are initializing an array of integer, all cells value are set by default to 0. Now here you might be interested that, do we have to need all these 3 steps when we are creating a new array? Now in this case, the answer is no, because you can combine all these 3 steps in one step. So then you can create the array like this. Now in this case, I will just comment over here all together to show you how it is working. Now in this case, what we are going to do, let's say if I want to create the array of string, so I will call the data type, then the array name. So if I put it as array, then square brackets, and here inside curly brackets, we will initialize our values. So for example, if I put A, B, and C, then after doing so, if I print out our array, you will see that everything works perfect. So basically, I'm printing out the array same way that I did over here using arrays library. Now if I run our code, you see that our new array also get created over here. Now you might be interested, what is the time complexity for these operations over here? Because whenever we create a data structure or an algorithm, so to prepare for interview questions, we have to know that what is the time complexity for these operations over here. Now if we start from the first line of code, from here, declaring an array and instantiating an array will take O1 time complexity. Now when it comes to the initialization of the array, now in this case, if we are doing it one by one, and if the number of elements in the array is n, so this part will take O1 and O1 and O1, and if we combine all of them, n elements will take O(n) time complexity. Now we know that print statement takes O1 time complexity, so this is nothing to do with the creating of an array, so we can just skip this line of code over here. Now when we come to this line of code in which we are doing all 3 steps together, this line of code will take O1 time complexity, because in this case we don't need to go through all elements, we are just initializing it over here. So that's why this takes O1 time complexity. Now with this, we have come to the end of this lecture, so hopefully you have understood how can we create an array in Java. So see you in the next lecture.